motive, preparation, previous and subsequent conduct. That is all an advocate is looking for in a case, and all of them are covered in one single section, that is section 8 of Evidence Act. Hey guys, welcome to my legal classes. This is Ganesh Pujari, and in the series of Indian Evidence Act, in my today's session, I am going to cover one of the important section from chapter 2, which is all about relevancy of facts, covering from section 5 to 55. Here I am going to discuss about section 8 with the help of two charts. First I am discussing with the help of one chart on motive and preparation, and then another independent chart on conduct, and lot of illustrations which are given in the act, and more than them I have a lot of case laws. With that, I think this is going to be a very comprehensive video, and with that I am taking you to the first slide. As I have already updated, I am going to discuss section 8 in two different parts. In this slide, I am going to discuss about the motive and preparation, and in my next slide, I am going to discuss about the previous and subsequent conduct. Now, section 8 is on motive, preparation and previous or subsequent conduct. The first part says any fact is relevant which shows or constitutes a motive or preparation for any fact in issue or relevant fact. Now, first thing first, we need to understand the term meaning of motive or preparation. Now, the simple meaning of motive is a reason for doing something, whereas the preparation meaning is the action or process of preparing. One is a reason for doing something, that is motive, whereas the action or process of preparing is called as preparation. Now, if there are any facts which either show or constitute either motive or preparation or both, which are helping in the facts in issue or proving relevant fact, in that case such motive or preparation will also be considered as relevant fact. That is what I have explained in the chart. Look at the chart again. What is first? There should be a fact which either should show or should constitute what? Motive or preparation or both of them, and with the help of that motive or preparation or with both of them, it should help to understand a facts in issue, or it should become the part of a relevant fact. In that case, such motive or preparation becomes relevant as an evidence in that particular case. That is all we need to understand in the first part. To understand motive and preparation, I have picked two illustrations from the act itself. The first illustration for motive. There are three persons, A, B and C. Now what happened? A murdered C, and B knows the fact that A has murdered C. Now instead of informing that to the police, what does B do? He starts doing blackmailing. That is extorting money from A for hiding the information that A has murdered C. Now after some times, A either gets threatened, or maybe he is feeling that B is not going to leave me forever, so he murders B. Now for that, A is tried, and if there is extortion of money from B is proved, in that case that becomes a part of the fact which will be considered as relevant fact, because that is the motive which is available with A to murder B. I hope that is very clear. While the first illustration is about motive, second illustration is about preparation. What happens here? There is a person by name A who is being tried for the murder of B by poison. Now B is dead because of somebody has poisoned him, and the fact is A has bought the similar poison from a shop. Now before the murder, A has bought that poison, which becomes a relevant fact as a preparation. That is how we need to see motive and preparation. One very important thing that you need to remember is just having motive or just doing preparation cannot be considered as an offense. only when the act is completed that becomes an offense. Now, having mens rea or actus rea alone is not sufficient to prove an offense. Now, what happens in motive? There is mens rea, but actus rea is yet to happen. Whereas in preparation, there is actus rea, but mens rea to be happen, like only when he gives poison to B, that becomes the complete act. If he has bought only poison, in that case we cannot say that he has committed a crime. That is one very important aspect we need to remember. While the first part is about motive and preparation, the second part is about the previous or subsequent conduct. Now, conduct is a behavior. Now, what happens here, as per the act, the conduct of any party or of any agent to any party to any suit or proceeding in reference to such suit or proceeding or in reference to any fact in issue therein or relevant thereto, and the conduct of any person and offense against whom is the subject of any proceeding is relevant if such conduct influences or is influenced by any fact in issue or relevant fact, and whether it was previous or subsequent thereto. Let us try understand the concept with the help of a chart. Now, what happens here? The first and foremost thing is conduct. Now, conduct of any party or of an agent of any party or any person and offense against whom is the subject matter of any proceeding. Now, these are the three kind of personnel that we can think of. Now, the conduct of these people is relevant if such conduct influences or influenced by. Okay, it may be influences or influenced by any of the relevant fact or facts in issue. In that case, that also becomes very relevant for the case, or that can be an evidence to the case. Now, such conduct is maybe a previous conduct or maybe subsequent conduct to the actual incident which has happened. Now, to understand this, we need to take the help of an illustration. So, I have created an illustration which will help you to understand, which is in my next slide. Let's go to the next slide. Before getting into the actual illustration, let us try understand the two explanations given in the act. Now, this illustration helps us to understand the conduct as well as the two explanations. In explanation 1, it says the word conduct in this section does not include statements unless those statements accompany and explain acts other than statements, but this explanation is not to affect the relevancy of statements under any other section of this act. Now, what is a statement? A statement can be anything which is given in oral or written or through any kind of gesture. Now, it very clearly says a statement is not conduct. We cannot consider a statement as conduct. Now, what is conduct? Conduct is the manner in which a person behaves, especially in a particular place or situation. But the act very clearly says a statement is not conduct. How to understand this? For that, the illustration is there. But before going there, there is one more explanation given, which says when the conduct of any person is relevant, any statement made to him or in his presence and hearing which affects such conduct is relevant. Now, that's the beauty here. You are making a statement, and if such statement makes any kind of conduct with the person who is relevant to this particular case, in that case, his conduct is relevant. So, the statement can influence to the conduct and such conducts are valid, but statement alone is not valid. That is all we need to understand. And whenever I am discussing statement here, it very clearly says this limits only to the section that we are discussing, that is section 8. Now, let us move to the illustration which clarifies all the doubts related to conduct, statements, and how a statement makes to or creates a conduct. Now, let's get into the illustration. The illustration is very easy. Imagine there is a movie theater where there was a movie was exhibited, and this movie was supposed to be adults only. Now what happens when the movie was running? Suddenly a person comes inside the theater and says there is police around and they are checking into the theater. Now that is a statement. A statement is not conduct. It is just a statement. Okay, he has made a statement saying that police are around and they are coming to check inside the theater. Now, immediately after hearing that statement, three young boys got up and ran away from the theater. Now, they were peacefully watching the movie, and the moment they heard the statement, immediately they got up and ran out of the theater. Now, what does their conduct says? Their conduct says they are not above 18 years, and even then they have came to watch the movie, and now they are very clear that if they are caught inside the theater, they might get punished. Their conduct very clearly helps to understand that they are of below 18 years age. That is how we need to understand a conduct, that is the behavior shown by the boys, whereas a statement is what told by a person. Now statements are not conduct, but the response to the statement is conduct. I hope that is very clear. There is one more illustration given in the act itself, that is there is one Mr. A and one Mr. B and one Mr. C. Now the allegation is whether A has robbed B or not. Now they were sitting there and C suddenly says the police are coming to look for the man who robbed B. Hearing that statement which is made by C, immediately A ran away from the scene. In that case, the conduct of A can be a relevant act to the evidence. That is what we need to understand from the conduct. There are as many as 11 illustrations. I have already explained 3 of them. I am not getting into explanation of all the illustrations because it is going to kill a lot of time. Please take screenshot of this slide and then also take screenshot of this slide. These are the 2 slides where I have brought all the illustrations. I am not getting into details because I have lot of case laws. So I would like to invest little time on the case laws and save time here. I hope you have taken the screenshot of both slides. Let's move to case laws. I have lot of case laws and I am bringing important comments from those case laws for you guys. And the first 2 case laws are the grounds for rejection of testimony of eyewitness. Now remember, eyewitness is one of the most important witness, but sometimes the eyewitnesses are also rejected. Why? Let us try understand with 2 comments from 2 important case laws. The first one, Ganpat Kondiba Chavan versus State of Maharashtra, where it was commented that the conduct of an eyewitness in non-disclosing the incident to anybody for a number of days is highly unnatural one and is sufficient to reject his testimony. Now you have been eyewitness to something. Now you will share with someone or the other. If you are not sharing it with anybody for a long time, in that case such testimony can be rejected. That is what commented in this case law. The second comment is also coming on the same case law, where it was commented that it is well settled that the conduct of a witness in not disclosing the incident to person or persons whom he must have met after the incident is indicative of the fact that he had not seen the accident. Now, in the first statement, what they said, if he is not disclosing to anyone for a long time, that cannot be accepted as a testimony. Likewise, if he is not sharing with those people who are really concerned with that incident, that can also be considered as an evidence. That is what held in this case law. The next 2 case law that I am discussing is on conduct as an evidence. The first case law here is Sankaran versus State of Kerala, where there was husband and wife. Husband killed the wife And in the court, husband told that when he murdered his wife, he was insane. But the people said before murder he was sane, after the murder also he was sane, and immediately after the murder he threatened his children that if they make noise he would kill them also. That means he was sane during murder also. His such conduct of threatening the children became an evidence and the accused got convicted. The next case law is Anant Chintaman Lagu versus State of Bombay. Here what happened, there was a widow who was regularly going to for treatment to a doctor, and one day doctor said that he would take her to Bombay for certain good treatment, and while they were traveling he gave poison to such widow lady, and in the hospital she died. He never allowed to do any kind of postmortem, and he also took all the jewels, and in the court all of that became evidence because his conduct of not allowing to do postmortem or keeping her jewels gave the clear idea on his preparation taking poison, his motive of taking all the jewels, and his conduct of not allowing to do postmortem became evidence against him, and biggest conduct was he never allowed to do postmortem. So this is how we need to see conduct as an evidence. The next two case laws I am discussing about role of motive in an offense. The first case law, that is P.V. Narayana versus State of Andhra Pradesh. It was commented that if motive is proved, the case of prosecution becomes more easier to connect accused to the alleged incident. So proving motive is very important in an offense, which is what held there. In the other case law, that is Barikanu versus State of Uttar Pradesh, it was commented that normally there is a motive behind every criminal act. So that is what held here. While the first two case laws are on the importance of motive, the next two case laws are saying that motive is not that very essential in all the cases. The first case law is Yunis alias Karia versus State of Madhya Pradesh, where it was held that if all the other evidences are proving or helping the accused to convict, in that case understanding motive is not that very essential. Likewise, in the Barikanu versus State of Uttar Pradesh, it was held that motive is something which is known to the accused only. It is a psychological factor and it is not very necessary to understand motive in all the cases. If you have sufficient other evidences, that is sufficient to come to a conclusion. That is what held here. Moving on to another case law which discusses about conduct, that is M. Malkani versus State of Maharashtra, where it was held that recorded telephone conversation about settling the bribe money was considered as evidence of conduct. Another case law, Raja versus State, again it was held that if there is sufficient evidences, in that case understanding motive is not very important. Likewise, in Barikanu versus State of Uttar Pradesh, we have already discussed one line in previous slide. It was also said that if there is an eyewitness, in that case that is a sufficient evidence. We need not to understand motive in such case because we have clear evidences available. That is what held in this case law. Finally, if you need a little notes on what can be the different motives for a murder, you can have examples like dowry death or revenge or power or greed, love, lust, pride, esteem. All of these can form motive, and in different cases we have understood different motives. With that, I am signing off on my session on motive, preparation, previous and subsequent conduct. Hope that was a comprehensive approach, and thank you so much for subscribing my channel. Please like, share and comment my videos. All the very best for whatsoever purpose you are referring my channel, and thanks again.